Good afternoon, everyone. We'll get started in a minute. We've got a rowdy bunch here today. We're not talking about Super Bowl Sunday. We're gonna start the council meeting in about 30 seconds. I'm looking at you. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'll start today with usually we start with the territorial acknowledgement. I am going to do that second because today is also the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau. So 80 years ago today, this camp was liberated. And the Holocaust, which is also known as the Shoah, is one of the darkest moments in human history, with over 6 million Jewish people murdered by Nazis. As we pause to honor the victims, we also reflect on the dangers of anti-Semitism and how oppressive systems can foster discrimination and genocide, leaving lasting effects on communities for generations. As a city, we recommit ourselves to upholding human rights and to challenging anti-Semitism, racism, and bigotry in all forms. And just on a small personal note on this matter, my husband's family is Polish, and the Polish people, including in camps like Auschwitz-Birkenau, lost whole generations of families. And the Polish people in total lost about 25% of their entire population over the course of World War II. So it's important that we, again, pause to reflect and to honor the victims of that war and of that very, very dark time in our history. So I'll move now to the territorial acknowledgement. We would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather, land on which we are broadcasting from today, is land traditionally cared for by the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Chinootan people. We also acknowledge the enduring presence and deep traditional knowledge and philosophies of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today. One other moment of reflection is that the city of Waterloo today mourns the passing of former Mayor James Bauer. James Bauer was mayor from 1960 to 1965. He was first elected as an alderman, as they were called, at the young age of 25, and by age 31, he had become Waterloo's youngest ever mayor, a distinction which still holds true today. During his time as mayor, Waterloo underwent a period of unprecedented growth and prosperity. In 1960, a shopping mall development began in the core of the city, and Waterloo Square was one of Canada's premier malls, containing 45 stores when it opened in 1961. At this time, the development was deemed as one of the most courageous and ambitious ever undertaken by a North American municipality. A second shopping plaza at Bridgeport Road and Weaver Street was also constructed. Waterloo's land area also increased significantly with the annexation of Waterloo Township land, and this enabled the creation of new residential subdivisions that included Lincoln Village, Lakeshore Village, Maple Hills Acres, and Colonial Acres. Land for the establishment of the 86-acre Parkview Cemetery and the Conestoga Parkway were also secured. A second sewage disposal plant was constructed along with the new fire department headquarters on Weaver Street and a substation on Westmount Road North. Waterloo's first high school, Waterloo Collegiate Institute, welcomed students in 1960, and a new library building opened its doors to the public in 1965. So indeed, a very, very busy time as mayor. Bauer spent considerable time during his tenure as mayor promoting improved planning for the future betterment of Waterloo. In a 1963 speech, Mayor Bauer stated, there are those who, as a solution to Waterloo's problems, would propose that we stop the growth of this city. This city must be led not by visionaries, but by men of vision. And I guess today's version of that is primarily women and men of vision. In 2023, when I was a very new mayor, I had the opportunity to meet former Mayor Bauer. His son had reached out to me, and I was able to visit him at his home in University Gates, and he shared some of his memories of his time and some of the people that he knew then. And he showed me a brief 8mm video that had been digitized of some of the changes that were taking place in Uptown, in the Uptown Square, the knocking down of some of the former factories that were there. So it was really interesting to see that and to hear him just, talk about, not just, he certainly didn't talk about himself, but all of the people that contributed to those initiatives and to the decisions that were being made. And at the time, I also said to him, well, do you have any, I took the chain of office to him, so he was able to wear that again. And I asked him, do you have any advice for a very new mayor? And he said, always think about the people. So certainly he was a man of vision, but also a man whose advice certainly still stands the test of time today. And if you look at particularly at Uptown Waterloo, you can see, and other places in Waterloo, the wards that you represent, you can see what his and the Council of the Day's vision and the staff of the Day's vision have how they've built and changed Waterloo. So on behalf of council and all of staff here, we do wish to pass on our sincere condolences to James Bauer's friends and families. So our moment of reflection. At the beginning of this council meeting, we pause to think about the needs of our community. May we show wisdom and compassion in all our decisions. Council is looking if anyone has a disclosure of pecuniary interest. Seeing none, we'll move on to presentations and delegations, and we are pleased to have three representatives of the Kitchener-Waterloo Symphony here today. You're most welcome, gentlemen, we will turn the floor over to you. Thank you for coming today, and we look forward to your update.
Thank you very much for welcoming us, Mayor. My name is Bill Poole. I have the great pleasure and honor to be chair of the new board of the new KW Symphony. And on my right is Ross Wells, who's secretary. On my left is Paul Ross, who's treasurer. So we have a two-part presentation. Paul will start us off with what happened, and then Ross will talk about what we're doing to move forward, and then we all three would be happy to answer questions after that.
Thanks, Bill, and thanks to you, Mayor, and Council for inviting us here today. When we were first elected to become the new board of the Kitchener-Waterloo Symphony, we made a commitment to the members of the Symphony and the community to the extent we could try and report back on what happened, because as you will recall, in September 2023, the Kitchener-Waterloo Symphony declared bankruptcy, and there was a great deal of angst in the community, I guess, because no one really seemed to know what happened. And so we committed to report back to the community on to the extent we could what we learned about what happened, without pointing fingers or assigning blame, just to sort of clear the air. And this next few slides you'll see is sort of an abridged version of the presentation we've already given to our members. So as you know, in September 2023, the season was canceled. The board announced at the time that they needed $2 million to avoid insolvency. And unfortunately, shortly after that, 6 days after that first announcement, it became clear, I guess, to the board that the $2 million was not going to be raised, and they filed for bankruptcy. All of the board members resigned, and as I said, there was a sort of a dearth of information in the community. So we were elected in June of 2024, and really thanks in large part to the efforts of the players who as you know, did a GoFundMe campaign and raised enough money to sort of keep themselves going and recruit the new board. And so we've been working away since then. You're going to hear from Ross on sort of what we're doing going forward. But looking back, the conclusion, if I could put it in one sentence, it is that COVID killed Kitchener-Waterloo Symphony that was already weakened. And some of the numbers we found, you know, before COVID even hit, the deficit of the symphony was over $700,000. And then, as you remember, in March 2020, you know, everything shut down. And unfortunately, the symphony wasn't able to resume live concerts until almost 2 years later. And really, it wasn't until the 2022-2023 season that they had sort of what I would call a post-COVID season. Unfortunately, audiences are very slow to return. And I think I remember myself, you know, we stopped going out, right? People stopped going out, and that's what hit the symphony. So that last year, before the declaration of bankruptcy, the losses continued to pile up, and such that there was an accumulated deficit just before the bankruptcy was declared of $900,000. The board looked at their options. They did a lot of work around trying to come up with different models. What could they do? Could they make the symphony smaller? You know, they looked at trying to find new sources of revenue. I'm sure they came to council. They went to various funders. They went to corporate sponsors, and basically they were turned down at every turn. They thought they were going to get some money from the federal government. That didn't come through. And in the end, they were looking at deficits going forward, potentially in the sort of, you know, 2 to 3, another $1 million. Sorry, I'm getting behind myself here, or ahead of myself, but they're looking at in the next couple of years of further deficits of $1 million. And they were told that if they started that next season knowing what they knew about those deficits, that they would potentially have personal liability themselves, that their D&O insurance wouldn't cover. And because with all of these factors sort of weighing on them at that point in September of 2023, they made the decision to file for bankruptcy. Now, you know, we might sort of dispute whether that was the right decision or not. Everyone might have a different opinion, but it was definitely clear that the organization was bankrupt or was insolvent when that declaration was made. So that's, as I said, that's a very fast version of our presentation, but I'll turn it over now to my colleague Ross to talk about what we're doing next.
Hopefully, the next part we hope is more optimistic. Envisioning the new KW Symphony, that's the process that the board is now engaged in. And so we're restarting the KW, the symphony, and we're seeing that as an opportunity. The board, we think that we're starting the planning process here with what we're calling an open mind, not necessarily holding on to any of the preconceived views as to what has happened in the past or how things were run in the past. And the question that we've put to ourselves through this planning exercise is, what could a sustainable orchestra be in this community? And perhaps underlining sustainable. And in doing so, we think we're talking about rethinking the concert experience, and we're trying to be bold. A workup paper that we have to start us on this exercise talks about being ambitious, to be creative, to be innovative. We've concluded that it's not going to be enough. We don't think this is a matter of simply better marketing, better management, or better anything. We need to reimagine a symphony in this community to establish something that will be successful and inspiring. We've engaged Michael Duchesne, who all be well aware of as our facilitator in this early process, in Michael's, I should say, at a greatly reduced rate. And right now we're concluding what I would call the discovery phase. And board members and Michael have undertaken some, I think, 50 to 60 interviews seeking input as to what this symphony could look like and what the issues are, opportunities. We've talked to community leaders, we've talked to the musicians. Michael in particular is talking to Canadian orchestra leaders really across the country, former board members, past donors. We're cast as broad a net as we thought we reasonably could do. And all of those views, which we've been compiling, are coming together. And we are to a session on February the 15th. We'll be meeting. Sadly, I won't be there, but the board, other than myself, I'll be away. The board, there'll be 6 musicians. There are 6 art leaders from arts leaders from not necessarily this community, but this community and other areas in Canada who have been encouraged and have accepted Michael's invitation to join, and some others. And that group is going to get together to consider the input we've received and to attempt to develop a vision as to what that sustainable symphony could look like in this community. That vision will then be tested in further meetings, and ultimately that lead to, we hope, a strategic plan and a business plan for the future symphony. At the same time, we're engaged. The musicians are really running a series of concerts right now. And I would note that the KW Symphony is playing on the 31st of January at St. Matthew's Lutheran Church in downtown Kitchener. And if you don't have tickets yet, there's still an opportunity to get tickets. It's the Canadian Celtic roots. The concerts so far at St. Matthew's have been great, and so I really encourage you to attend. At the same time, the Symphony Board now is going to start planning for a 2025-2026 concert season, but it'll be much the same. In churches, possibly all at St. Matthew's, we're not sure, but it'll be sort of playing for time, as I've been calling it, to keep us in front of the public and to continue to have music in this community while we go through this planning stage, where we're then going to roll out what we hope we'll be able to achieve and develop as an exciting new vision for symphony in the community. That's what we're up to.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We really appreciate you coming, the work that you're doing on the planning side of it and the interviews and you know, trying to resurrect the symphony. And certainly we appreciate the work that the musicians are doing with, you know, that they have undertaken to continue to provide concerts. So I'll turn to council to see if people have any questions. Councillor Wright.
Thank you so much for coming and sharing with us today. I've been coming out to those symphony concerts, and most recently the December holiday concert at St. Matthew's, and it was incredible. Like, it really is quite amazing what the musicians have been able to accomplish in such a short period of time. So I'm curious, just what you perceive as risks and opportunities in the, you know, if you're looking maybe 6 to 9 months ahead, where you think you might be and what you think the big opportunities are in this space.
I guess I think the opportunity is that the community supports the symphony. We are getting positive response. That concert which you attended, the Yuletide holiday concert, was sold out. They've all been sold out pretty much. So that's the opportunity. The risk is that the old model of we were Friday, Saturday concerts at Center in the Square, that model, and there's lots of issues. Subscription sales, generally all the orchestras are finding that the communities, their supporters have generally turned away from subscriptions and looking more at individual tickets. So there's the environment for a symphony has changed, and we have to figure that out and figure out how to appeal to, I think, a broader audience. You're asking the question that I hope after February the 15th and hearing some voices and people wiser than I will have the answer. But that is the question as to how do we reimagine symphony today? Reimagine symphony today.
Can I just add?
Sorry.
Sorry. Can I just add, you asked about 6 to 9 months. I think another risk, if I'm, from my point of view, is burnout, frankly. I think, the players have done such a tremendous job of keeping this thing together, and they've been, as Ross mentioned, managing the concert series up until now. And we are very lean right now. Like, the 3 people here are doing a tremendous amount of work. And we have one staff person, and the players are really running these concerts without a ton of support. And so, that honestly, I think that's a risk over the next 6 to 9 months. Is how do we just how do we manage this rebirth before we sort of move on to what we can become.
So definitely galvanizing that community support. I would imagine that you will need quite a bit of volunteer support over the coming months. It's really encouraging to see Michael Duchesne leading this process. As the Chief Operating Officer at Perimeter Institute, he certainly has bold and ambitious in his purview. And he's obviously got that history with the orchestra and the community to really understand what we need. So that's really encouraging too. So I for one will try to continue to come to the concerts, and I'm encourage you to continue to stay really in touch with the city.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Freeman.
Through you, Mayor, echoes a lot of those comments. Thank you so much for coming out today, and I'm really excited to know how much is happening behind the scenes as it relates to the symphony. And one of the pieces that I wondered about was the youth symphony and whether that's still kind of happening or whether the musicians have taken hold of that, because that was always a really great piece as well. And I know that there was also an education program in the schools.
The youth orchestra that was a part of the KW Symphony, that has, at the time of the bankruptcy, essentially, I think I could say, sort of broke away and is successful and is carrying on. So we looking ahead, we certainly acknowledge that we want to have a role in that area. I'll call it very broadly. We simply haven't the capacity yet to figure that out. It's on the list of to-dos, is to somehow return and become engaged in education and youth, but we aren't there yet.
Yeah, that's fair. And kind of goals and expectations for political support moving forward, do you have thoughts on that?
Yes, we need it. We do. And I know we are. We've been speaking with the City of Waterloo, and well, Bill would know better. We're in the midst of making application. We need help in this interim phase where we're not really going out on broadly based appeals yet, because we believe we need to build our case for support through this vision as to what we're going to be. On the other hand, we have some stalwart supporters such as the City of Waterloo who we think we can come to say, help us through this interim period where we want to keep these concerts going. A point I would also add about the concerts, just so be clear, that the Yuletide concert actually turned, the musicians don't like to call it a profit, but when revenue is greater than expenses, I think it's a profit. They actually made $2,500. But typically, when the symphony performs, it's the other way around, and can be quite substantial. And the money that is being used to fund those concerts at St. Matthew's is money from it's the GoFundMe campaign. They are hiring themselves that money that was given to the players, it's not symphony money, it's players' money. They're using that to help fund those concerts at St. Matthew's. So that the debt we owe the musicians is enormous, which almost made me lose track of your question, but I hope, did I get there? Was I close?
The question was around political support going forward.
Do you want to speak political support? I mean, I think that.
You certainly covered that you're having conversations with
Yes,
city
we are.
staff, and that's great. And I agree. Like, we actually have an incredibly talented professional orchestra in Kitchener-Waterloo, and I'm really thankful to know that we aren't going to lose those musicians to other municipalities. But did you want to add to that?
Just to say, really reiterate what Ross said, we absolutely need political support. We met a week ago today with Barry and the CAO and the senior staff at the City of Kitchener, so we're having that discussion with them, and we'll be with the region. And so we absolutely need that support, but the sense we get is that there's tremendous buy-in. I mean, I think everybody really wants the symphony back. So, and everybody wants it back in the center and the square, but that's another huge hurdle because it's so expensive.
Thank you, Councillor, and thank you. Are there other comments or questions? Councillor Roach.
Thank you for your presentation. I, too, got to experience the symphony. As a counselor, I guess they were on the road, and they were at Cedar Brae School and the family, the Y, the Stork family Y, and it was fantastic. So, but I'm wondering that, you talked about reimagining, or, the symphony, and will this new vision align with the cultural and social priorities of the City of Waterloo? For example, I'm talking about, engaging with diverse audiences and underrepresented or marginalized audience as well.
I think that is a really important point, and I think it's a point that generally, if you went to the audience at Centre in the Square and you looked around Centre in the Square, I don't think the symphony was getting there and not really achieving that. But that is going to be a significant agenda item in this visioning exercise. That's what we need to do, is to learn and discover and vision how we're going to reach out more broadly, in my view, and this is just my personal view, more broadly to the Waterloo, Kitchener, the Waterloo region community in all of its diversity. And I've been hearing stories. There's lots of success in that area in other symphonies where it's, I guess to be blunt, we don't always have to play Beethoven. There are other musical forms where we can perhaps line up, as you suggest, and be more engaging more broadly. That's going to be front and center on February the 15th in the discussion.
That's excellent to hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And I'd just add, similar to what others have said here, that we're really pleased with the work that you've done, and certainly with the work that the musicians have done to keep it afloat and alive as much as possible. So we really do, because I'm stopped every once in a while by people to ask what's happening with the symphony, what have you heard, and so I'm really glad that you're at this point, and look forward to hearing what comes out of the February 15th. The February 15th business planning and strategic visioning sessions, because, the other thing that I hear, and I'm sure Council hears a lot of, is that, we really, to keep our community vibrant and to keep the people who are, whatever age they are, coming to our community, staying in our community, the arts and culture is a critical piece of that. So we do absolutely wish you very well in this. And not to be parochial, but when you're looking at venues, there are some good venues that are of that sort of 400 to 500 person size in Waterloo as well. So I hope you keep the Waterloo part of that on your list as well.
Thank you, Mayor. We absolutely will, and we have and we will, and we'll continue to do that. And thank you so very much for receiving us today, and thank you so very much for your questions and your support. We appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Well, we look forward to hearing back from you. Thank you so much. Okay, so the next item on the agenda here, there are three reports that are under the consent motion. Did anyone have anything they want to pull from consent? Nope, seeing none. Okay, I'll need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Freeman, seconded by Councillor Roach. All in favor? That is carried. And maybe I should have prefaced this before we ask for the motion, but I do just want to say, you're sitting here, you know, when I read through these reports, you know, it just really struck me again how amazing the work that you do is, right? You take, you know, a relatively modest sum of money and turn it into really amazing things throughout the entire community. And I hear from a lot of different people about how easy it is to apply for the funds and to work with the funds and to work with each of you and others and volunteers that contribute to this. So, you know, partly when I was reading through this, I was also reflecting on, you know, we're in a bit of a moment across the world where there's a lot of trepidation in that, but you know, this type of work that you're doing really is about community building. You know, I think at its core, and really grassroots community building. And I think that's, you know, that's how we respond and should respond, I think, to some of the uncertainty that exists and questions that people might have in the world. Not to get too philosophical, but, you know, we want people to engage with the city, but we also want them to, you know, take ownership and do things on their own and connect with their neighbors, whether they're right beside each other or somewhere else in the city. So thank you so much for the work that you do that really enables that. And I also just wanted to note, thank you to the Waterloo Region Community Foundation for the $10,000 that they granted through this program as well, because that's certainly, you know how to make $10,000 go a really long way, and the community members know how to make $300 and $500 and $7,500 go a really long way. So, so thank you so much for that. Okay, so there were no items removed from the consent agenda, so we're on to the staff reports. Parking reductions for affordable housing. Affordable housing. It's a project update with Adam. I apologize, Zuffarelli. Am I saying that correctly?
Sorry. Is this on? There we are. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Okay. Apologies for that. Welcome, Adam. And if you need to put that the stand up a little bit, you can. There should be a button, I think, on your left.
I'll just lean into the microphone a little bit.
Okay.
It's okay.
Okay.
Thank you, though.
All right. Okay. Well, over to you, Adam. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mayor, Council. I'm here to deliver a project update on the Parking Reductions for Affordable Housing Initiative, which is one of the 8 initiatives, a subset of one of the 8 initiatives from the Housing Accelerator Fund. So in 2024, as many of you know, the City of Waterloo finalized the Housing Accelerator Fund Action Plan with the federal government. Initiative 8 from the HAF Action Plan consists of a number of items, including developing a process, legal agreement, template, and monitoring framework for reviewing additional parking requests for affordable housing. So the program overview, I'll just give you a background on how the parking reductions are planned to be delivered. So staff have observed that parking demand at affordable housing locations varies slightly, with some being significantly having a significant oversupply of parking compared to what is actually in need, and some having a small shortage or a slightly accurate demand. But the wide variation in the amount of parking demand between affordable housing locations leads us to believe that the minimum requirements of the zoning bylaw are not always suited in each location. And currently, affordable housing providers would have to apply for a zoning bylaw amendment to reduce parking requirements in each instance. If a small reduction may be facilitated through the Committee of Adjustment, but in most cases a ZBA would be required, which is a 90-day process and can lead to significant delays or time between the project going from planning phase to the building phase. So Section 40 of the Planning Act allows municipalities to enter into parking reduction agreements with owners of land. So the city has previously used Section 40 to facilitate parking reductions for several affordable housing and several market rate housing developments in Waterloo. Through Delegated Authority Bylaw 2023-073, the Director of Planning has the ability to enter into parking reduction agreements under Section 40 of the Planning Act. And to support the HAF action plan, staff are proposing to formalize the process of parking reductions for affordable housing. So staff are proposing the following evaluation criteria for affordable housing developments to achieve parking reductions, and that we only offer parking reductions to developments which meet the following criteria, which are, as drafted, this is just for information at this time, a minimum of 25% of dwelling units in the development provided as affordable housing units, and that affordable housing units be maintained at affordable prices / rents for a minimum period of 25 years, and that the accessible and visitor parking spaces are provided in accordance with the requirements of the zoning bylaw, calculated based on the amount prior to any reduction. So the recommendations of this report are that council receive report IPPW 2025-004 for information, and that council directs staff to proceed to finalize the process, legal agreement, template, and monitoring framework for reviewing parking reduction requests for affordable housing in accordance with the contents of the report. And I'll be bringing a second report in about 1 month's time with a finalized process. And that's all.
Okay, thank you very much, Adam. I appreciate the presentation and the report. We'll look to council to see if there's any questions from council. Councillor Wright.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I just have a quick question. On page 40 of the report, we talk about the evaluation criteria, and just giving consideration to how important regular transit is. I'm wondering what the connections are there between a site that may be wanting to reduce parking minimums and the availability of frequent transit. You know, in some of our policy documents, we talk about high frequency transit being, you know, within 800 meters, or I haven't actually seen a definition for what high frequency transit actually is in our municipal context, but is there any sort of evaluation criteria that makes that connection?
So through the chair to Councillor Wright, most of our multi-unit housing that we permit in the city is located within the nodes and corridors. These are strategic locations identified in the official plan, which permit greater intensity uses, apartments, stacked townhouses, et cetera. And these are typically along transit corridors. So in staff's opinion, it is unlikely that a proposal would be a significant distance from transit, as a parking reduction would likely be required in the case of a multi-unit residential building.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Any other comments or questions from anyone? No. I just was curious about the 25 years for, about the affordable housing units being maintained for 25 years. Is that, like, I know you're talking about the parking at affordable housing, but is the 25 years, is that set in stone? Because doesn't seem like a terribly long period of time.
Through the chair to Mayor McCabe, the 25-year minimum evaluation criteria is just what we're looking at as a minimum threshold for what we consider is an appropriate affordable housing unit that merits to have parking reduction. So the length of time that the affordable housing unit will be kept as affordable will be maintained through different agreements, not necessarily this agreement. So it could vary from site to site. It could be in perpetuity, could be 25 years, 50, et cetera. But the cash in lieu of parking agreement the Section 40 agreement would not affect how long the affordable housing is maintained as affordable, but it would just, the evaluation criteria there to say that we might not offer a parking reduction to a site which proposes an affordable housing unit with only 10 years duration of affordable housing. So to summarize the answer, I'll just say that the length of how long the affordable housing will be maintained as affordable is secured through a different agreement and a different process.
Okay, thanks. And then what happens, or what would happen if it went, if a place passes that threshold, say it is 10 years or 25 years, whatever it is, and the place is no longer affordable, then what happens in terms of the parking reduction? Like, it is what it is at that point?
To Mayor McCabe, yes, it would be that case at the point. In 25 years, the city may be very different than it is today. And we're planning that the scenario would be the same. The scenario that you described would be the case, whereas if affordable housing development was no longer affordable in 25 years, the parking deficit would be the case, with keeping in mind that the city may be in a different transit mode environment in the future.
Sure. Okay. Thank you very much. And then you said for the community input, there was a notification that went out January 14th. When is the community input? Have you set a date for that?
To Mayor McCabe, the date was today to receive community input back from, and the community input would be summarized in the following report in 1 month's time.
Okay. Okay. Super. Thank you very much for that. All right, if there's no other questions, then there's two recommendations, and generally it's to receive the report and to ask Adam to continue to do this work. So I'm looking for a mover, Councillor Bodley, and a seconder, Councillor Wright. All in favor? That is carried. Thanks very much, Adam, for your work.
Thank you so much.
All right, look forward to the final report. The next item on the agenda is the committee appointments to the Grand River Accessibility Advisory Committee, also known as GRAC, from 2025 to 2028. There's Amy Ross, who's the city's accessibility advisor, is with us if council has questions. But there's three people who were to be appointed. So are there any questions, comments from anyone? Seeing none, looks like we're all very happy with those who have asked to be appointed. So I will look for a mover, Councillor Bassick, and a seconder, Councillor Freeman, and all in favor. That is carried. Thanks very much, Amy. Okay. So moving right along, we're at consideration of notice of motion given at a previous meeting. Because this motion is from me, I am going to hand the chair figuratively over to Councillor Bodley.
Thank you. I guess I'm looking for somebody to put the motion on the table and a seconder. Mayor McCabe would like to put it on the table and Councillor Vassick would like to second it. And I'll look to see if anybody has any comments on this motion. Mayor McCabe.
Thank you. Just very briefly, I want to thank the Association of Municipalities of Ontario and as well as the other municipal associations that were involved with hiring Help Seeker Technology to do this research. And it's very comprehensive, and it's certainly, it really has dug in deep to the challenge, that's the staggering challenge that's in front of us. The numbers are huge. The investment that is needed is equally significant, but I think what's really important with this report, as well as coupled with the Solve the Crisis campaign that the Ontario Big City Mayors have been, a campaign that they continue to raise and talk to the provincial government and the federal government about, is that this report gives us a pathway to addressing in partnering with particularly the provincial government to address this significant challenge that municipalities across the entire province are facing. So I don't think too much more needs to be said about it. We know it's a problem. We know that there's a way forward. We know that staff are doing their utmost, and community agencies are working with great compassion and care to address this issue. And the cost of this is something that municipalities cannot bear on our own. We're not set up, the funding formula is not set up to deal with issues like this. We need the support of the provincial government, we need the support of the federal government, and we need to all work in partnership. So thanks very much, Council, for considering this.
Thank you for that, Mayor McCabe. Councillor Bassick also has some comments.
Through you, Interim Chair Bodley. I have a question and then I have some comments. What should I do first? I'll just do my comments since you did yours, and then we can leave it for staff, just a question for staff. I just wanted to highlight a few things in case people haven't had a chance to read the full report yet, or for all those listening. So some of the numbers attached to this, some of the things that surprised me, I guess there's so much in here, so I feel like I'd want to talk about all of it, but I wanted to just highlight a few things. So one is that the numbers are dire, and there's 81,515 people who are known to be homeless, and that's a 25% increase since 2022. That could triple to 294,266 by 2035 without significant intervention and an economic downturn. Status quo is about 160,000 upward trajectory, and if we improve things a little bit, it's still anticipated to get to about 128,000. Something quite upsetting is around child and youth homelessness, and really where some of the intervention ought to lie. Right now, nearly a quarter of people experiencing chronic homelessness are children and youth. And research that the AMO report noted was that people who first experience homelessness as children are significantly more likely to face chronic homelessness later in life. So 78% of those who became homeless as children were chronically homeless during the federal count. That's wild. And so the report speaks at length to the dire situation. It also offers some solutions. It does critique the solution that we've been relying on, which is crisis emergency measures. And it says that while those are important, they have been implemented at the detriment to long-term solutions. And as part of the problem, long-term solutions being things like supportive housing and transitional housing, rent supplements, mental health and addiction support, among others. And it really emphasizes that we need to be focusing on this prevention rather than crisis or enforcement approach, leading me to my concerns about the Safer Municipalities Act that was proposed and went through first reading, and that does emphasize an increased enforcement approach, as we learned in the briefing note that staff have prepared for us. Thanks for that, Sandy. And so the numbers are huge, but so it's $11 billion they anticipate to reach zero chronic homelessness and $2 billion to end encampments. And I agree, every level of government has a responsibility to invest in this, especially in a social democracy that I hope we live in. In the absence of the investment that we've needed from the federal government and the provincial government, municipalities have stepped up, and the report says that 51.5% of the total reported funding has come from municipalities. And so we certainly need to continue to step up while advocating for more. And as much as I even hate to say this suggestion because it places a burden on individuals, and we know that individuals are struggling and they feel like they're struggling or that they could, and many of us are at risk of homelessness, and we're dealing with this with folks in our wards who are facing rent evictions and things such as that. And so while I do hate placing the burden on individuals, I had this like wacky idea that if the $13 billion spread across every Ontarian would be about $900 per person. And if everyone on a sliding scale gave what they could, maybe some people would give maybe $20, maybe some people would give $2,000. Like the money exists and the wealth exists in our province for some of us. So if we wanted to really take a philanthropic approach as a community and address the solution here locally, we could say, like, on a voluntary basis, who might want to step up and give what they can. so that, as the report says, homelessness becomes rare, brief, and non-recurring. So anyways, that's a long-winded way to say, I read this whole report. It's so sad. It's imminently important for us to deal with this, and we actually just can't, we can't shove it off to other levels of government. We have to do, it's like a real both and situation here. Anyways, thank you for indulging. And now I have a question, Sandy, for you, which is, I'm certainly happy to support endorsing the report. There'd be no reason not to. But I am curious how it translates to a local context. And so I'm curious if staff at the city and the region are reviewing this report. If so, are you and they integrating this report into your existing plans? And if yes to that too, how do you anticipate this might happen? And if you're completely ignoring this report, why?
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Vasic. So yes, I have to agree that the information contained in the report is truly sobering. I think that that's a great word for it. So to answer your question, yes, we are, it is on our radar, and more than just being on our radar, we are doing a deep dive into the report. I can confirm at this point in time, the report has been distributed and made available to staff. For those that are interested, it is available on their website as well as a toolkit that AMO put together in terms of the advocacy. That's really the intent of this report. So to confirm, I have reviewed the report. I have also synthesized the report down to about 4 pages for anybody who's interested, just with some of the main data points that I think are especially important. You mentioned in terms of the local context, are we doing any work with regards to that? So happy to advise that I have connected with regional staff who obviously are the service manager in this area and really take the lead in terms of this work, but also recognize that this is really a collaborative effort. This is an all hands on deck. So the report is also on their radar. They did advise that I can confirm that they are doing the deep dive in terms of the local context. What does this mean for us locally? How do the numbers compare to what we are seeing locally? Obviously the timing in terms of the pick count, the point in time count that was done in the fall, that plays into this as well. Regional staff have advised that that information in terms of their review and analysis will be available towards the end of February. So I'll be working closely with the region with regards to that work, and then we can decide internally as well and with the region how we want to make that information available, and then what do we as a city do with that information once it's available. Obviously the region is the service manager. We are also, similar to other municipalities, doing this work. It's very much in its infancy in terms of formalizing this work as part of strategic initiatives specifically and then across the entire organization. So we will have to make some decisions about how do we use this information, how do we use it as part of our work plans, does that change anything in terms of the work we are doing, how can we participate as part of advocacy and working really closely with Mallory in legislative services as part of that work. So all of that to say, yes, it's on our radar, it's part of our work plans. We're working really closely with regional staff with regards to this, and then we'll determine how best to release that information moving forward.
Super, thank you so much.
Okay, I'll look to see if anyone else on council has any comments, questions of staff. If not, we have a mover and a seconder, so I will call the vote. All those in favor? That is unanimous, okay. And I will relinquish the chair back to the mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bodley, and thank you everyone for supporting that, and thanks Sandy for your comments there and your work on this issue, as well as other staff. I see Nicole Popke, and we know there's a number of staff that are engaged in this issue, so thank you very much. So moving on, we have no communications and correspondence. We have no unfinished business. Questions of staff, council, are there any questions? Just a quick reminder for all of us, council, like this is a good opportunity if there are particular items that you wanted to ask staff about. I know we regularly, there's various things that we email staff about, but if there's sort of anything that would, that's sort of particularly burning or you need staff input on, just a reminder that things that are require particular amount of work. We do want to, this is a good opportunity to table them so that we all know. It's good transparency for us all to know what we're thinking, the public knows what we're thinking, and then also to just know if we're directing staff one way or the other to take action on these things. So, but no questions here, okay. New business. Councillor Wright.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, I just want to shout out to all the city staff who made Waterloo possible this weekend. It was great fun. It was awesome to be out there skating on the public square. Managed to get a really nice video of our Olympia ice cleaner in action. And it was accompanied also by the Uptown Waterloo Comfort Food Crawl, which the mayor and I were both participating in. Which was supported by a number of local restaurants and bars. So it was a pretty happening place on Saturday, and we had fantastic winter weather finally. So I'm deeply appreciative to Mother Nature for making that part of it happen as well. Thanks.
That's right. Yeah, it was a really good, both of those are really great events. Councillor Vasic. And don't forget DJ King Kareem. He was DJing, and he's always amazing.
Yeah. 100%. Thanks through you, Mayor. I don't want to belabor the Waterloo point because you brought it up, but we had so much fun. I had friends from Toronto in, so there were 5 kids, and we were there for 4 hours, which is a very long time to have 5 children not complaining about the cold. Well, one was a little bit, but warmed up. It was so fun. They had a great time, and they were like, so, they're from Toronto, so they were like, wow, this is so good, Waterloo. And also the maple taffy would have probably cost like $3, but here we got it for free, So it was such a great day. And the highlight for them had nothing to do with Waterloo at all, but it was the Zamboni, how it creates a pile of snow. They played
the Olympia.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Olympia. Big thanks to Olympia for creating the pile of snow, which the 5 children played on for about an hour. And then the ice sculptors, their extra snow, they would let the kids take it, and then they made their own little, anyways, it was amazing. Sorry, that is not my new business, but it was such a great day. My new business is, the city has a membership to the Canadian Centre for Diversity and Inclusion, and I was lucky enough to participate in a webinar about creating neuro-inclusive and accessible workplaces, which, as you know, I've talked about being an important cause for me, I suppose. And I just wanted to highlight some points, not as long as my last points, but I found these really interesting, and it's worth us considering as we move forward in our accessibility work. So 20% of workers are neurodivergent. Some know and some do not, maybe some suspect, but that's a good chunk. Many of the neurodivergent folks mask, which means that they hide traits related to their neurodivergence. And while this is a survival tool, it can have grave consequences for individuals and organizations. And so one of the things that they highlighted at the workshop are that differences are not deficits. And one thing that is relevant to a workplace is that they said neurodivergent professionals in some roles can be 30% more productive than those who are not neurodivergent in particular roles. And they distinguished finally the difference between accommodation and accessibility. And while both are very important, accommodation refers to adaptations to make the person able to fit into the environment. And in that case, the difference is seen as a challenge. And while accommodation is a necessary and fundamental human right, like they said, it places the onus and burden on the individual to either ask for accommodations or feel like they need to ask for accommodations. And so what we want to work towards is accessibility, which I know that the Ready team and Amy are working on, which is a proactive process that looks at universal design, which is so embedded in all the work we do, and really sees difference as an opportunity. Thanks.
Thanks very much for sharing that. Sounds like a really good workshop. Councillor Bodley.
Thank you, through Mayor McCabe. Just wanted to maybe wrap it up with what we talked about at the beginning here, with the neighborhood supports in 2024. The Laurelwood rink team actually used a mini grant yesterday on Sunday to host a skating party at Laurelwood Park. That was really, really well attended. Lots of pizza, donuts, etc., coffee, and really just neighbors gathering together, which is awesome. And maybe I'll use this as an opportunity to shout out the rinks teams across the whole city as well too. This has been, fortunately for them, a good year for all of the effort that they put into creating these rinks with the extended cold weather we've had for the last little while. We've had more than just a handful of days of people being able to get out in the neighborhood and skate on the rink. So thank you to all the neighborhood rink teams across the whole city.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Bodley. Councillor Freeman.
Through you, Mayor McCabe, just a couple of more broadly community updates. I just wanted to point out that how fortunate we are as a community to have Chicopee and have a ski hill that's so close to us, and it's amazing to see all the families that are out there and kids learning how to ski, and it's just like, it's absolutely been fantastic, and they do a great job with that hill. But also, like, on the military front, like, both the Elgins and the Royal Highland Fusiliers are actively training on winter exercises to be part and to be able to support the Canadian Army in the north, like, the far north, as part of the government's plan to be protective of that area. And then a whole bunch of soldiers left on deployment the 1st of January. So there's a lot of soldiers that are headed to various operations worldwide, and they're from our community. So, and there's quite a number.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we certainly thank the reservists and the people who are part of the Army, and the work you do too, Councillor Freeman, as the honorary Lieutenant Colonel. We thank them for their service. Councillor Roach.
7 years ago, a gentleman in our community, Jason Kipfer, began the Eastbridge Business Connections Group, and it has really blossomed. We have now Lakeshore Business Connections, Westmount Business Connections, and even Woolwich now, and Cambridge is actually involved as well, and other cities. But it all originated here in Waterloo at the Eastbridge Business Connection. So there is an anniversary tonight at Morty's. There's going to be over 100 people from different businesses in Waterloo at this event tonight. So I encourage anyone listening or in council or in the audience to show up.
Great. I just might do that. Thank you, Councillor Roach. And I guess I'll just mention that one of the things I did on the weekend was go to the Siskins, the Waterloo Kitchener Siskins 90th anniversary. They had an alumni game, and they had all kinds of memorabilia out. Someone has saved pamphlets and programs from, I think, every year. So, and fun fact, the Siskins are the winningest junior B team in Ontario history. So they're in a rebuilding year, but it's a great product, and certainly encourage people to come out and check the schedule and come out and support the Siskins. Yeah, and as well, Councillor Roach and I on February 8th have what we're calling one of our community conversations. So that's at Albert McCormick, correct? Albert McCormick Community Center.
Yes, 10 o'clock Saturday, February 8th.
That's right. So come on out and meet us both in person. He might tell you some, you might have some puns or something ready. Anyway, okay, moving on. Enactment of the bylaws. Moved by Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Roach. All in favor? That is carried. And adjournment. Moved by Councillor Bodley, seconded by Councillor Freeman. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you, council and staff, and have a great afternoon.